Hey guys, so Lord here, back again with another review, and today we'll be taking a look at the Mattel Masters of the Universe Origins Flying Fists He-Man and Terror Claws Skeletor. A 2-for-1 review, that is right. Mostly because they have a pretty similar, if not the exact same gimmick as one another, and it's just easier for me to bunch them up in one single review as opposed to doing basically a review of the same figure twice. So that's why we are here today. That said, before we get into the meat and taters of this review, let's first take a look-see at the mini comics, since I no longer have the packaging for these figures, because they are quite old now. And judging by the cross-sell on the back, you can tell how old these two are, because we have literally some of the biggest peg warmers of 2022. Starting off with the best female figure in all of Origins, the Sorceress, Party Time Stratos, and of course Buzz-Off and Jitsu, two of the better figures to come out last year in my opinion, especially with Jitsu's blinged out hand there. Speaking of blinged out, check how shiny these guys are. Should have reviewed them at Christmas time because they look like blown glass ornaments. That said, as far as their accessories are concerned, starting off with He-Man, he comes with a fidget spinner. It's not really a flying fist, is it? They should have called Thunder Punch flying fist, because he's literally got two giant fists that go on his arms, while this guy's got this very goofy looking fan weapon. It's like a windmill on your arm. Weird. He also has a shield with the same spinny thing on it. Again, not really seeing where the fists thing comes in, but okay. On top of that, though, we get a full power sword. This is, of course, the better and improved version of this mold. It has the slightly elongated handle, literally by like a millimeter or two, so their thumbs don't bump up into this piece here, this little circular piece. Then again, if they weren't all doing the thumbs up all the time, that wouldn't be an issue at all. We also get the more tried and true vintage inspired head for those of you who missed out on the battle armor figures. And then we also get the open hand, which I almost think he comes packaged with this, but I don't remember offhand. No pun intended. Okay, maybe a little bit. Okay, maybe not. I actually didn't plan that one. But as far as Skeletor's accessories are concerned, we get this crazy, awesome, cool-looking dragon skull. Which reminds me, we still need a Dragon Blaster Skeletor. Where the heck is that? But you can do a full-blown Pac-Man with this and go, nom, 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 nom. And it does have this piece in the middle. It's also a good noise maker. So if you want to annoy somebody, then that's probably the thing to do it. That said, we also get, unlike He-Man, who doesn't have flying fists, we do get Terror Claws for Skeletor. And they're essentially the same thing as the Triple H Terror Claws, which is very surprising because usually the Origins and the wrestling figures, or the Masters of WWE Eternia, whatever you want to call it, don't share a lot of parts. But in this case they do. And that's very surprising because that's really kind of a first for these lines. We also get his Havoc Staff. We do not get a power sword for him though. And then we also get the vintage inspired head, once again, as well as the open hand, or as I like to call it, the turn your head and cough hand. Oh yeah, because literally it is sculpted that way. I mean, that is a ball cupping hand if I ever saw one, and judging by this Skeletor's outfit here, he probably does that a lot. So, as I tend to do with my Masters of the Universe reviews, if I am going to group up a He-Man with a Skeletor, we're going to move He-Man out of the way, because I am a Skeletor guy at heart. And I like this figure despite its flaws. I think it looks cool. That said, this Skeletor is a very flamboyant outfit, we'll say. and isn't really, what's the phrase I'm looking for here? He doesn't make a good argument for any people hating on Masters of the Universe for one specific reason, okay? Like, he is literally wearing a shiny purple tank top. That is the blankiest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. So, moving on from that, you know, that's low-hanging fruit. I can't stop. These jokes write themselves. He's got the open mouth head, which we haven't seen reused a lot. It was only really on that first release of the standard Skeletor, so it's nice to see it here. I think this one's painted a little bit better. It's not as, tacked on as the previous version. He's got this clip on his back here, which you can use either for your hand or you can use this wheel down here. But that is made to hold this crazy, this thing. Which I tend to put in like, I forget how I put this on here. I think it's like this. Have the dragon head hanging by his butt. And then this tilts back. Or you could do this. Probably save some real estate. Either way, we'll clip those on at the end for final thoughts, or maybe not. But as far as articulation on this guy goes, it's Origins. His head will rotate. I will say, this head was very hard to get on here. I think this was the head package separate, and the vintage head was on him. But I had to file down the peg on mine because I had a lot of mold degradation. Like, it was really covered in schmutz. So, after doing that, this head moves a little bit better. I will say the neck, if it's supposed to move, is stuck on mine, so it is what it is. Shoulders go out to the side. They go back down. They do rotate. But you are going to get that crack sound from the gears inside. So I'd almost advise against that. But it does rotate. You can get it to work. He does have a hinge in the elbow with a swivel. He does have a swivel in the wrist with the hinge. He's got the waist twist, but of course there's a gimmick involved here. And really, do the arms need to swivel like that when you twist the waist? I don't know. I don't know if that's how the old one was. But it seems like a bit much to me. I would have rather just had the arms posable. And maybe even removable instead of that, because I could take or leave that. That just makes things kind of a pain in the nuts to work around. That said, he does have the T-jointed hips, the kick out, kick back down, forward and back. He's got single knees. Really loose on this guy. Like, this knee ain't worth a damn. Like, this thing is floppy as all get out. I'm going to need to put some kikis on that. I thought we were past this, man. I thought Web Store was the worst. This guy's giving that figure a run for his money. He's got a really weak knee on this side. So, I don't know if I'm going to have to pick up another 2000X Skeletor and maybe swap out the knee there, because he's got the nice tight ratchety knees, but that just freaking blows. But you do get your swivel down there. And this knee ain't all that a bag of chips either. He does also have the boot swivel, the hinge in the foot, the rocker, and that's your lot. He does also have peg holes at the bottom of the feet, but since the knees are loose, that's not really going to help. Like, at all. But if we set him off to the side, let's take a look at He-Man quick. He's got the same gimmick going on. I'd say his works a little better. I think my Terror Claws is kind of janky, though I did just click the crap out of the arms. That's probably got something to do with it. He's got the Screaming Mimi head going on, but his neck peg kind of pivots a little bit, so I don't know if they're supposed to do that or if they're always stuck, but popping that back on. He's got the little clip on the back for the fidget spinner fan windmill thing. I think that's the stupidest weapon I've ever seen. He's really shiny, like good old Skeletor here. And wasn't the vintage Skeletor just a matte color? I don't think he was shiny like this. So it's kind of nice that they gave him that treatment. That said, unlike my Skeletor, this He-Man, he's got a little bit of a wonk knee here. But he stands up like a champ. He doesn't have that many issues. His boot cuts are really tight out of package, though. This one in particular is like sticking. I might need to pop this off and figure out what's going on down there. But this knee, too, is really tight. Like, that's a tight knee. Wish they were all like that, man. What the heck? That said, though, not the biggest fan of these figures. I gotta tell you, these are kind of some of the more disappointing releases in this line. I wish they were a little bit better, especially the Skeletor. The Skeletor just straight up sucks. Like mine, I don't know if it's just mine, but his knees aren't worth a crap. They suck. They're terrible. They're really freaking loose. And I'm gonna have to do something about that because he literally can't stand unless he's popping a squat and doing like the vintage style pose, which is not what I like to do with these because they shouldn't be restricted to that just because the knees are loose. My web store's like that right now, but he kind of has an excuse. He's got that big old honking backpack. So, yeah, not the best deluxe figures in this line. They're kind of, I don't think you need them. I think if you're going to pick up any variants, the Battle Armor figures are the way to go. I really like the Battle Armor figures. I think those are a little bit more fun. They're a little bit higher quality, and you get, I think, better head sculpts with those because you get the really ticked off looking Skeletor head and the screaming He-Man head. You also get the vintage heads, just like these guys. So if you want the vintage heads, I suggest getting the Battle Armor figures. And you get more weapons, too. Like, better weapons. Like the Skeletor shield. You get the sword with that one. And then the He-Man, you get the... well, actually, you only get the axe and the sword. You don't get the shield. But you can always hook them up with an extra one, I guess. You do get an effect piece with that one, though. But with that being said, before this review drags out any longer than it already has, let's now move on and compare these two to our regulars for size comparisons to keep things short and sweet as usual. Because, let's face it, these are Origins figures. If you don't know the scale of this line, you're living under a rock, son. And as promised, here is both Flying Fists He-Man and Tutti Frutti Hot and Juicy, Terror Claws Skeletor, alongside our two regulars, the Mythic Legions of Brother Mandibulus, Living Spawn, who as usual, towers over everyone. So with that being said, time to wrap things up with some final thoughts. Overall, and on top of the fact that these figures seem to have the remnants of that loosey-goosey knee syndrome that had once plagued this line, they also are very difficult to pose because of their respected action features. Now, while I don't mind the waist twist being omitted for a kind of spring-loaded, almost power punch type feature, I don't feel like the arms needed to be included in that. I think if these guys were built like the Battle Armor figures where, you couldn't take the arms off, but you still got the spinny waist gimmick, that would help with the whole Terror Claw slashing or Flying Fist punching gimmicks that these guys are supposed to have. I think that would have been good enough, because if anything, these are meant to be improvements upon the vintage figures. And while I do still believe that in some aspects they are, at the end of the day, this line is about having fun with your toys. They're not meant to be super articulated whatevers. They're meant to be fun. And these two figures right here, unfortunately, are just not that fun to me. I didn't have any fun getting them into this pose for this segment of the review and or the URL shot. And I really didn't have fun messing around with these and reviewing these. And that's what it's all about, man. If you can't have fun with your toys, then really at the end of the day, what the heck is the point, right? So if you can afford to live without another variant of He-Man and Skeletor, I think these are definitely the ones to skip. I would say check out the Battle Armor figures. They are much superior in almost every way, and on top of that, they're just fun. a lot more fun. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you're so inclined, please feel free to do all the YouTube rigmarole, as well as hit me up over on Instagram at Overlord Productions if you ever want to talk toys or anything in particular. As the #1 best way to get a hold of yours truly. But as always, keep the comment civil, because the world sucks enough as it is, especially while on paper Terror Claw's Skeletor sounds like a cool idea. Then they made him look like this. Seriously, what the heck's up with that? And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.